Let's get ready to rumble.
No idea what's happening here.
This is still good.
Perhaps we can also give some context of who the players are in this conversation, but I think there's some practical conversation here for pastors.
Yeah, I thought it'd be a fun topic. You've got Sunday Cool Tees. Many of you have heard of them. They've given us super comfy and super soft t-shirts.
High quality.
Just about the best t-shirts in the history of the church t-shirt realm.
It is tough to find a better t-shirt. So they had a big announcement a couple of weeks ago. You might have seen some of their marketing. They're very clever with their marketing. In that marketing was we're putting out a new Devo. And I actually have the Devo right here.
Oh,
it is the word according to Gen Z. It's a little tongue-in-cheek. It's meant to be funny. The idea is, hey, we're gonna paraphrase a Bible verse in quote-unquote Gen Z lingo, knowing that no 15-year-old talks like this. This book was written to 24-year-old youth pastors for a laugh. Like that's the idea. And then on the other side, you'll see an ESV translation of the same verse, and then a couple of sentences, maybe 2 or 3 paragraphs on a little bit about the passage. Then you'll get 3 questions and then a focus on the other page. So it's short, it's sweet.
Pretty standard Devo format, right?
Pretty standard Devo format.
With the one exception being the ridiculous lingo.
Other
So-
than the Eugene Peterson paraphrase.
But I
for a
think
new
that I don't
generation.
think that's abnormal for students though. Like I think for
It's not.
students, especially like I mean there are like more classic devotionals for students, but like having some sort of like funny, quirky thing
Yeah.
is totally within
Very-
the norms.
Do you
Very
ever have
normal.
the Paint Splash NIV study Bible, like
Yeah,
teen
dude.
NIV
Oh,
study
yeah.
Bible from the 90s?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Remember it well. So, for instance, here's a paraphrase of John 1:1 from day 1 of the Gen Z Devo. Since day uno, there was Cap G. Big J was chilling with Cap G, and Big J was Cap G. Of course, you know the ESV translation. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So that gives you a little taste of what this little nugget is all about. Not a huge deal in the grand scheme of things. It's funny, it's short, it's easy. You could hand this to a student. They'd probably get a laugh. Maybe they'd glean a little bit from it. Maybe not. But it sparked a fire.
It's heresy is what it is.
It sparked a fire
Absolute heresy.
in the world. I mean, really,
William
I saw it.
Tyndale 2.0.
I saw it on Twitter. Was it Matt Walsh? Was
Yeah.
that who was just
Yes, it was
absolutely
Matt Walsh.
railing?
I spent the weekend tearing sackcloth and spreading ashes.
Matt Walsh was so angry over this, and there was quite a few people who were so upset that the publishers, which was Lifeway, you probably have heard of them. They're a major publishing company, major
have
Christian
stores.
publishing company. Used to have stores. They put out an official statement. Del, could you read us that official statement? Once all this backlash came, here was the official statement from
Yes,
Lifeway.
I'll read it in my most concerned Lifeway employee way.
I appreciate that.
Lifeway students' greatest desires to serve the next generation.
More southern,
by-
please.
That
More
is so
southern.
I
good,
was saying,
man.
more
that
so-
set-
Here we go. Lifeway students' greatest desires to see the next generation by introducing them to a lifelong devotion of God's Word. Recently, in partnership with Sunday Cool, the creators of popular YouTube series called Cool Carl, our team released a 30-day devotional journey called The Word According to Gen Z. The product features a key biblical text using the ESV, a short lesson from the scriptures, an application section, and a playful, over-the-top summary of a verse written in the parody of the Gen Zingo lingo. There was no intention at any point during the translation of the Bible for Gen Z. If you've been in student ministry, you know that sometimes some of the activities you plan don't always bring about the effort that you hope for, and that's what happened in this case. Some people, when they saw this product, Matt Walsh, assumed that Lifeway decided to translate the Bible in an irreverent manner in order to reach Gen Z. This was not the case. Still, in order to ensure there is no confusion about our reverence for a commitment to the authority and the seriousness of the scriptures, we have decided to no longer publish this product. We take responsibility for the offense, and we apologize.
I can picture myself in a Lifeway store right now. I'm there. I see the candle section.
You see you see the CDs back where you can put the headphones on and listen to the tracks first.
I see the little VeggieTale dolls in the back.
Mhm.
It's all
The
coming
sacred
back.
art that you know will be on sale very soon.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So cancel culture alive and well. The book gets canceled. Sunday Cool goes silent for a few hours, maybe about a day and a half. Many of us are wondering, is Sunday Cool going to say anything? Like, what's happening here? And then they put out their response, which first was a written response, if I'm not mistaken. And that written response was followed by a video.
in their style, to be fair.
So if you don't know
in their style.
If you don't know Sunday Cool, their marketing relies heavily on satire, comedy, poking fun at a lot of different groups. And their video response to canceling their Devo was very, in my opinion, it was really funny. Like I watched it and laughed a ton. I know some people did not think it was so funny because it might have pigeonholed a few KJVers or boomers or Karens. I think they were all featured in that response video. So then you've got this war that between this tiny t-shirt company.
They're not a tiny t-shirt
No,
company. They're
they're
just
not tiny.
listed
Okay.
as-
They're
they're
not
the
tiny.
number 98 fastest growing companies
The
in America.
city they're from is
Yes,
tiny.
they're from Mount Dora.
They're
which
from a
is the
tiny
size of
city
this
in
office.
Florida.
But they are an industry leader in what they're
Yes.
doing. They're not a tiny company, and also they are great at what they do.
How many employees do they have?
Best
Because
shirts.
that usually constitutes tiny companies
I would
too.
guess 40 or 50 at
Okay,
least.
that would be classified as a small company.
It's a small business for sure.
It is definitely a small business. Whether or not they're an industry leader doesn't matter. They're a small business compared to Lifeway. Come on, like it's not really all that.
Do you think
close.
Lifeway has 50 full-time employees these days?
I don't know what they have.
Yes, they do.
Yes.
They have way
I
more.
would think
All
think
right,
they would.
all right. Here's what I think. Like, they are an amazing like screen printing business. Like they not only produce great products. Like the Practically Pastoring shirts are Sunday Cool shirts. They're great shirts. Super. They source their material from a great company, and they have like understood the technology of printing in such a way that is just wonderful, right? With that being said, they entered into with that being said, also they're the only screen printing company I know that actually markets their company in a way that sets them apart from everyone else. They tapped into the youth ministry pastor, the youth pastor kind of world, and they captured it with humor, and they've actually created funny videos for youth ministries, which is something that like. If you do that for youth ministry, a youth pastor will love you forever because it's so hard to find good videos on for youth ministry. Even beyond that, like they are like an industry leader in t-shirt company t-shirt printing when it comes to like for the churches. It's great, but they entered into a world that I don't know if they were prepared for. The curriculum world is cutthroat, and like the little bit that us in here have been involved in can attest to that. Where it's like it's highly competitive. And even though everyone's a believer, right, it feels kind of gross sometimes. And I think like what we noticed here is they were I'm the kind of person trying to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. Like even like with the Matt Walsh people, it's like I'm assuming that their concern is they're perverting scripture, and it's going to be like a Rob Bell 2.0 again, where it's like we've watered down stuff, we're trying to be too relevant, all this whatever. That's giving people the benefit of the doubt. So I'm going to say the benefit of the doubt is, and knowing some of the guys from Sunday Cool, they legitimately are like, hey, we are more than a t-shirt company. We want to actually make an impact for people for God. So let's like make a devotional for kids. And I think they genuinely were trying to do that. And they know that humor of Gen Z would be the bridge to get them there. What I think is the thing that bums me out is the people who have been the most critical about the Gen Z book. That ultimately caused them to shut it down, or are people who have known nothing about youth ministry. I mean, Matt Walsh. Well, I guess Matt Walsh. I'm thinking of Ben Shapiro is like Jewish. Matt Walsh is like he claims to be an evangelical Christian, right?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So like they're possibly all in the faith, but
he's not known for his sense of humor.
Right.
Very valid. Very valid. And I'll even say that one more thing is like. I've actually had people who are in the youth ministry world and other pastors who are like, I love Sunday Cool, but the Gen Z stuff actually is cringy. And that's fair. And I think they would even say they're going over the top of the language translation. But also, you got to know your demographics. they're not trying to get kids in Los Angeles to read their book. They're getting middle of America, like, kids who like watch stuff on TV and think this is crazy. And then when they get this book, they're like, this is even more crazy. But it's
what they're getting is youth pastors, Frank. They're getting youth pastors to buy this book, and then maybe the youth pastor will give it to a student.
Every 15-year-old that I know, which is like 4, but I've run that by. There's a girl in our youth group who plays in our praise band, and I was kind of explaining the situation to her. And so this is actually, this one that Tim's holding is my youth pastor's. He bought this because he's 24 and thinks it's funny. But I was like running it by her, and she's like, "That's ridiculous." I'm like, "Exactly." Like, the 15-year-olds are not the target of this.
Right.
The couple years out of Bible college youth pastors are the target of that book. But because it was canceled, because Lifeway has shut it down, it sold out the first printing in record time because of the controversy. Exactly. The whole thing is what Sunday Cool does, which is brilliant marketing. The best thing for that devotional that could have ever happened was that Lifeway published the first run. Lifeway put up the money for the first printing run, so they knew how successful it was going to be, and then just said, okay, well, we can't print any more of these. Sorry, guys. It's all on you now. You have it formatted. You have the size. All you have to do is take our Lifeway logo off of it, and then it's all yours. Sunday Cool comes out on top of this.
Oh, for sure.
Unintentionally. I don't think, obviously,
unintentionally. That was not their plan.
Yeah.
And
in the long run, it would have been great to have a partnership with Lifeway for them.
Yeah,
I think they wanted that. Yeah.
But I think what happened is the Lifeway students, which again, for those of us coming out of student ministry world, we've been watching, and Lifeway students has made great strides in the past few years.
Sure.
So somebody at Lifeway students gave them the green light, but then the grown-ups got involved and said, whoa, what's going on here? So the issue is a Lifeway issue. If Lifeway didn't like it, they should have never published it. But someone gave someone in the student's office autonomy to go ahead and make publishing decisions. And then once outrage happened, then Lifeway said, listen, we're Lifeway. Like, we are owned by the Southern Baptist Church. If you're surprised that we're conservative, you're not paying attention. like who did you think you were dealing with?
Yeah, two things. I don't want to lose the irony that Matt Walsh, who gets on every single liberal about creating cancel culture, just actually went out of his way to get this thing canceled. To me, I'm like, okay, that's a whole different podcast.
Yeah,
but
it's funny. Where
I was feeling a lot of the tension, and I think this is where we can bring this home to the pastor behind the pulpit, is okay. They received criticism, Lifeway did, and regardless of whether we think they handled it well or not, that criticism got pushed down to Sunday Cool. And there is now a little bit of the controversy is sitting with Sunday Cool's response to Lifeway, their response to Matt Walsh and any boomer or Karen, as they would put it, who doesn't like their product. And it can come across a little tongue-in-cheek. And I think for us, we get it. If any of you are listening, you're a student pastor, basically it's like you versus the system the entire time, right? So like that same culture does exist in this t-shirt company. And for some people, it seemed like the "we got canceled" video was not very tactful in its hey, we're going to move on speech. Is that a fair way to put it?
Their response did not make me believe that they were capable of discipling teenagers. Like their response, like my response to their response was, your maturity is showing. It was, hey, let's make a caricature of everyone that disagrees with us. And surely there cannot be any collective wisdom that would disagree with us because we're right, and everyone that disagrees with us can't be right. So let's celebrate the fact that we're different and these people don't like us, and them not liking us is what makes us awesome.
So can we not make fun of ourselves and have a little fun?
But they weren't making fun. They weren't making fun of themselves. They were making fun of the people that disagreed with them. You can always make fun of yourself. You can always be the butt of your own joke. But when someone sincerely, and again, the people that cancel, I think the canceling was ridiculous.
Right.
I think Lifeway going out of their, the weight of this should be on Lifeway. Lifeway done messed up AA
Absolutely.
run. Lifeway was the one that was at fault. But then they come out here and they make this, kind of, and again, it's comedy. But the same people that did not get your joke are not going to get your response. And so it comes across as we're attacking people that don't agree with us. And my initial take was, this is like that youth pastor that preaches one decent sermon and has then decided, hey, I'm ready to be a senior pastor now. I've preached this good sermon. People liked my sermon. And then the first time that somebody in the church disagrees with them, or they have some kind of an issue with an older person in the church, then they say, no, my goal is not to be a senior pastor anymore. Now my goal is to be a church planter. I don't want to, I don't want to deal with, the 75 and 80-year-olds in the church. I just want to start a church for people my age and, to reach out to my demographic.
Wow.
I'm sorry. I'm done with my soap. For the record, I love Sunday Cool. They are the best in the world at what they do.
So one point of pushback earlier was, I don't know if Matt Walsh is like the primary cancel focus on this. I think he's just the biggest name of the people who complain.
That's fair.
There was actually, I think, some woman somewhere started the conversation. And I think Matt Walsh is just one of the other people who got in the conversation. And he's the biggest name. The second thing is this, because I know offline we had this group text, and at first I was like, no, I disagree with all y'all. Sunday Cool did nothing wrong. And then I started processing it. And I started thinking, I get what you're saying. I do think though that if they were going to make a video about this, their whole gimmick, I think, is like satirizing the culture we live in. And like this is like the most real life scenario of the love thy Karens and love thy boomers that they've been saying for like a long time now. But to your credit, I do understand that their response matters, right? And how you respond dictates a lot more. And so I will say this, and this sounds like super secret information. I do know that they are actually processing right now in the republish, should they change certain things to not offend as much the people who were offended by this, right? I think the biggest offense that people were calling blasphemous was calling God Cap G and calling Jesus Big J. And so they're I think there's conversations on should we change that to not be as whatever offensive, apparently. And I think they're processing all that kind of stuff. And I think that is a mature thing to look at, is okay, maybe we did swing too far one way and whatever. But I think Andrew, you bring up a good point that I think is the bridge to our conversation right now, is what is the bridge of when we how do we respond in a way when it is unfair? How do we respond in a way when things happen and it's no, this is wrong. I just shared an idea of in my other show where it's I was in a situation where I wanted to bring a Christian hip hop artist in, a group called Beautiful Eulogy, 3 white guys from Portland, and then Jefferson Bethke, which he used to be popular. And I wanted to bring both of them in to speak at a youth event, and it got shut down from the senior pastor. And the senior pastor's response was, we don't want to bring that culture into our church. Now, let the subtext of that marinate for a second.
So then we just did the tour at my church. Remember that in Orlando?
Yeah, that was in Florida. But I'm talking about, this was in Arkansas when I did this. So with that being said, there was something that was I knew I wasn't wrong in this. What he said was subtly racist and offensive and just it shows he doesn't care about the next generation, especially the next generation who is urban or a minority or whatever, right? And so my problem with that was how do I respond to that? And so my first response was, I could be petty, because in the same vein, he kept saying I need to take out all the hip hop music out of the pre-service playlist in the youth ministry. It's I could have been petty, I could have been angry, but I chose, I wanted to do something that was actually Christ-like. And so I guess my question to you guys is not reframe the conversation for Sunday Cool, but when you are a associate pastor, a youth pastor, not the main person, or maybe you're the senior pastor and you have a board of elders who are telling you to do something that isn't what you feel is right, what should be our process and the gracious way we should respond to them, even if we do feel like we didn't do anything wrong?
God placed me under this authority. If God did not want me under this authority, he would not have placed me under this authority. Therefore, until God calls me away from this authority, I'm going to respond as though the authority that he has placed over me has the authority to make this call.
I think that's fair. I think just a little pushback. I do think we're called to lead up. because I do think that like sometimes God has given us a vision, so like, but to your credit, yes, we are submit to that authority, but how do we do that in a way? I know for me, I'll just be super honest with you. I'm completely self unaware at times because I'm like way out here, like in what I'm thinking sometimes. I'm not even realizing how I'm actually feeling. Oftentimes, the best step for me is to identify the actual emotion that I have. Because if not, I tend to like let that thing dictate the rest of me. So, like the other day, something happened and I had an emotion of disgust. And I actually stopped because I'm trying to get better at this. I don't always, but I stopped. I was like, why do I have that emotion? And then it was like, well, if I'm going to be honest, I'm disgusted because I don't want this person to succeed. Well, why don't I want this person to succeed? Because if this person succeed, it's going to mess with my legacy and what I thought. Okay, so where's your identity, Delmar? Oh, crap. I thought I was supposed to be mad right here. And really, it's my insecurity because I don't want my legacy, whatever air quote that means, So I think for me, that shuts down literally 80% of the pettiness in my life is when I trace my emotion not even back to the other person and how they made me feel, but like, why did that get allowed to make me feel that way?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, to take it back to the original conversation, I pretty much in a very similar place as what Andrew described. I think Lifeway completely dropped the ball. It seems like on like focus groups, and I mean, it seems like they should have done more focus groups and included the quote unquote Karens and boomers in that, and you would have known about this a long time before you printed it, and you could have then said, "Hey, let's change a few things," and nobody would have known about this. So I think they bumbled it on that. Cancel culture is cancel culture, which is stupid. So that part of it stinks too. But then it's not like you're off the hook for your response when you're wronged. If you've been wronged, and I do think Sunday Cool was kind of wronged in this. I mean, that definitely was like the carpet got pulled out from under him. But at the same time, you're not just off the hook because you were quote unquote sinned against. I don't know if you want to say that far, but you know, you're not off the hook for your response. I do think the Karen and the boomer thing is kind of cringy, because I don't think that my church is full of those people.
It's because you pastor actual adults.
Right. And so I find it cringy, and I find that it's divisive. And I thought that their response video was what you said, Andrew. I was kind of disappointed in the lack of having a view for those people who were frustrated with you. And I do think they're not a church; they're a for-profit company. But at the same time, if you look at their about section, they say we want to serve those who serve, and it's all about serving the church. And when you say that kind of thing, you do bring upon yourself some of those. I think some of the if you say our goal is to serve the church, I think you can't then do things that are going to be divisive to the church and are going to perpetuate the youth pastor versus everybody thing, which is not healthy. I mean, if you're a student pastor listening to this, it's not you against everybody else in the church. I know it feels like that because I've been in that situation. I know it feels like that, but I would say you have to own as much of that as you can own in your, based on your own maturity level. And how do you deal with other people's decisions that are above you? I mean, on the one hand, you don't bear ultimate responsibility for that decision either. And so, if you're not going to carry the ultimate weight of making the decision, then there's a part of it that's just a maturity level of you just got to deal with it sometimes. If we're talking about an issue that's like a gospel issue or something like that, then that's a different story. And depending on your polity and how your elders are structured and all that. But when it's just a matter of disagreement, I think it was in a very old Matt Chandler sermon or an interview or something. He said, I did this when I was an associate pastor in Florida. Get like a notebook and make a list and divide it into two categories. One is philosophy of ministry. One is theological issues. And when you disagree with something, write it in one of those categories. And you'll notice that almost all of them are in the philosophy category. And that's just it's not your role. I mean, if they didn't hire you to be the senior pastor, they hired you to be the youth pastor. So it's just not your role. And I think it's really important to understand that. And now, being quote unquote on the other side of that, it is just true that there's just things you're not going to understand until you get asked to sit in that chair.
Well, and I was just going to say, talking about how Sunday Cool is a for-profit company.
Yeah.
Lifeway is a for-profit branch of the Southern Baptist Church. Both groups are in there primarily. That's not fair. I shouldn't say primarily concerned with making money, but they would not exist if it were not for making money. So Lifeway made a decision to make the most of their customers happy. And it was a conversation that did not sit well with Sunday Cool. And so they made a decision to make most of their customer base happy,
right?
Which is to play to the youth pastor, to play to the us against them.
Mm-hmm.
The difference is the same customers that caused Lifeway to cancel the publishing of further runs of the book are the ones that have the budget approval over the ones that Sunday Cool is now targeting with this ad. And so I wonder how many senior pastors, and I'm not one of them because, again, they are the best in the world at what they do, but how many Southern Baptist senior pastors who love Lifeway and are loyal to Lifeway are now going to say, Pastor Teddy, you are not ordering t-shirts from that company anymore until they do this, this, and this.
No, it's a good conversation. I had we're getting ready to launch the Lakeview Athletic Club here in a couple of weeks. Full athletic ministry at the church,
which is super dope. I'm very jealous.
Yeah, we're getting field prep right now. I'm so excited. My son's doing the flag football portion. So anyways, we're in the marketing phase, and one of my guys who's overseeing it says, "Hey, I'm in process with Sunday Cool to order all of our t-shirts. Do we still proceed forward knowing what's happening with him right now?"
Wow.
And I said, "Yes, absolutely, we do." They have the best t-shirts.
But
No,
the fact that,
seriously.
but the
But
fact
that
that
conversation happened because of this.
But the fact that someone who is, 47, 48 years old,
Yep.
old? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So someone who is rapidly approaching 50, their thought goes to, do I continue to shop with this company knowing that they responded that way?
Yep.
It affects bottom lines.
Well, and the other thing about it is when you use parody names of people like Boomer and Karen, you're reducing a person to one area of disagreement. And so let's say the Karens, that they may have been offended at this one thing and they may be faithful in 10 other things that they do.
But they're not going to buy your shirts anymore.
Yeah. And so because of that, now you're so that's where, to me, it's like, I just think it was just, I wish, if we could hit rewind and we would have focus.
But it's
groups
tough.
with
You can't
Lifeway.
pigeonhole every Boomer or Karen, because I have Boomers on my elder board who loved it. They said they love when people make fun of them. So it's just
Right.
it's tough.
But Jeff, I think you brought something up though that I think is crucial for the maturity of every pastor who is like us, who are transitioning into roles where they're primarily focusing on adults. It's really easy when you're working with just students to have that us versus them mentality, and also just constantly blanket people and say they just don't get it, and therefore it's easy to caricature them.
They get enough to fund your youth budget and pay your
Boom.
Exactly.
Yep.
But what you and Andrew just pointed out, as people who primarily have Boomers as your congregation, and then Karens are just basically like a woman that has lots of questions, I guess. But like
a white woman who talks to the manager.
That's it.
with the short hair that goes from top to bottom and the back to the front.
It's Kate Gosselin, but at 45.
Yes.
What you just demonstrated is that like there's a level of maturity that happened when you guys became this role, where it's like, A, you have to create more empathy for these people, but B, it's like it changes your perspective. Like I know there was that part of me that happened at some point in youth ministry where I realized that my ministry isn't primarily to my students, but it's to the students and their parents. And their parents, I mean, in this case, there were Gen Xers, I guess, but like there's also like Boomers and then my volunteer leaders. And I remember at some point in my student ministry thinking I didn't want older volunteers. I wanted younger volunteers because they were difficult, right? And at some point we have to mature as ourselves to say, like, there are people creating the image of God who just happen to be born in a specific generation and were raised in a certain set of values that make things a little differently than the way us millennials, and especially Gen Zers, look at. Now, what we're going to talk about in a second that Carrie Newhoff brings up is something that we have to also address too, is Gen Z, every generation that we reach to, are going to have unique things that we're going to have to address. And there's always been this tension of the previous generation kind of looking down on the next generation. And I think that if our generation, the millennials right here who are listening to this, or the Gen Xers who are kind of caught in this middle gauge between the boomers and the Gen Zers, we need to be able to be the bridge to say we will love the people from the previous generation, but we will actively, like Jesus with the one of the sheep, pursue the Gen Z as well, right? Like we need to be able to do that without demeaning and demonizing both. Did Sunday Cool demean boomers and white women who ask questions? Sure, that's a part of their satire. But I have to say, as far as satire goes, it's a lot better than Babylon Bee, and that's my political statement of the day.
Boom.
I think the favorite thing that came out of this for me was the shirt that they're now making saying "Love Thy Karen," and I ordered that shirt because it's good. You know, here's my tension with everything: is independently, I actually like all of these things. I like Lifeway. I like Sunday Cool, and I actually like Matt Walsh. I think he's got some good insights on things, and I think that's what I need to take to the table whenever I enter conflict with anything. It's like these things all do mean well. They're just not talking to each other.
And they're all multifaceted. That goes back to that zero-sum game thing.
And I think you have to choose which battles you need to pick. And when you keep locked in your mind, this person means well, and they've shown you time and time again, I don't necessarily fight those battles. Like a battle that I did not fight on staff here is I preach for our senior pastor about once every 4 weeks. And when I preach, I'm a black shirt kind of guy and some dark jeans. And he told me, he goes, man, it really just kind of bothers me that you don't wear some khakis and a button up. And like for me, I'm like not in that place because I am not that generation. And he goes, listen, I do know the culture of our church. I've been here 26 years. So could you put your button shirt up, put it in your pants? And I was like, I'll be honest, like that stung me on like an identity level.
First time someone told you to keep it in your pants. Sorry.
Anyways, that's something like, but it did. But you know what? Like whenever I did that, I was like, I saw how that improved the relationship I had between me and him. And I'm like, why? That's not a battle worth fighting. And it's actually kind of funny now because when I do show up on the main campus on a Sunday tucked up, they're like, oh, we know who's preaching today. it's all, I've become a meme, which I think actually probably gave us a better win than me even like wearing what I wanted to wear.
Well, with that joke that Tim made, further solidifies why we won't get sponsored by Lifeway. And and with that being said, just to make sure we're clear, yeah, the shirts we have that we're going to give out in a few weeks after we've reached 500.
Amazing.
On our, that's an amazing shirt by Sunday Cool, and we love Sunday Cool. We're big fans of them. And I think if this podcast shows anything, we could still love someone and be big fans and still say like, hey, we make mistakes sometimes, or we do some things that we probably wouldn't agree with. But hey, and Delmar loves Lifeway still. I mean, he goes to the one store that exists in Nashville, I think, or whatever.
They shut all of them down in South Carolina that I know of.